Welcome back, everyone. Jake here, and today I'm joined by an amazing guest. I first discovered this individual about 5 months ago when he published his Day 31 video, and I even remember leaving a comment on his channel saying, "Algorithm, push this man." And since then, the last 5 months, I personally have felt like I have a friend in the Ukrainian army. In the event you're not familiar with this individual, he goes by the name of Operator Starsky. Welcome to the channel, Starsky. Can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Jake. It's a big honor for me to be here. And I remember that commentary, by the way. It worked, I think. So, my name is Andrew. Most people know me as Operator Starsky. And I'm a Ukrainian National Guardsman. I work as a press officer for the Rapid Response Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine. And it so happened that on probably the second week of this invasion in Ukraine, I decided to create a blog in English. And here I am.
Well, I'm glad that you're on the channel. As I said, the last 5 months, I personally have felt like I had a friend in the Ukrainian army. It's definitely made me more invested in the conflict to talk about it more on my own channel. Can you speak to what the morale of the Ukrainian military or the Ukrainian people in general is like right now?
I didn't see a lot of change in terms of Ukrainian morale. I can say I think that we are all prepared to continue fighting until we are victorious, basically, because like there's no other way for us here in Ukraine, that's why like we all understand that we must believe in our victory, otherwise there's like no point in fighting whatsoever.
I've heard the expression that if Russia doesn't want to fight this war anymore, there's no more war. But if Ukraine doesn't want to fight this war anymore, there's no more Ukraine. Can you speak to what do you think the Ukrainian military, or maybe just in general the Ukrainian people, need the most right now?
Like three things: long-range missiles, of course, artillery, and cheeseburgers. Because oh my God, fighting without McDonald's is, I mean, it's crazy. They promised to open back in August, but we're still waiting. So yeah,
They haven't returned yet?
no, unfortunately.
I'm curious, do you have other major like Western brands in the country, like Burger King or Wendy's or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. We have like KFC. We have Baskin Robbins ice creams and stuff. Um, Personal favorite is of course McDonald's, and so it's like the biggest weapon against our morale is lack of McDonald's. Actually, I'm talking like Ukrainian soldiers, because every time we start talking about something, somebody goes like, when do they open McDonald's? And we're like, oh my God, I want those chicken nuggets and stuff. And yeah.
All right, well, we're going to have to tweet at McDonald's to make sure that they know that reopening those stores is important for the morale of the Ukrainian military. Can I ask, how have your beliefs or opinions or values changed over the last 6 months since this war began?
Um, let's see. They changed a lot, I would say. Not in terms, um, not in terms my attitude towards Russia, of course, because we were fighting against Russian invaders for centuries here in Ukraine. But in terms of other people, other nations, because as soon as the world started helping Ukraine, even before that, as soon as I started receiving like tons of supporting supportive commentaries from all around the globe. That changed a lot in my mind. I realized that the world is full of decent people, actually, people who will always help you no matter what. And here in Ukraine, we appreciate it a lot because we are the same. Um, and yeah, like you probably know a lot of Ukrainians, and you know that we are open and friendly people, and that's what we do as well whenever somebody needs help. And now we need help, and uh, we receive this help and support from very distant countries, not only from the West, not only from Europe, but also from countries like Japan, and other Asian countries. So yeah, it changed a lot. It made me believe in decency, in friendship, of course. Um, so I hope it answers your question.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Prior to the start of this war, I didn't know much about Ukraine. It was only with Russia invading, and then all of a sudden I was hit with all this news. I started doing my own additional research on the history and the culture and the country, and I think Ukraine's fantastic. I've really enjoyed learning about it. I read this book titled The Gates of Europe, talking about your history and that part of Europe is very fascinating. With the history of the Mongol Empire, the Kievan Rus, the Ottoman Empire, the Polish-Lithuania Commonwealth, and you had the two world wars, and Poland and Ukraine just disappeared and then came back, and Russia's trying to make you disappear again. So I
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
root
and
for the underdog. You guys are Rocky versus Apollo. It just has this epic David and Goliath story, and everyone wants to see you win.
yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And I think we have a lot in common with Poland, by the way, because Poland is one of our biggest supporters, not only since the beginning of this invasion, but also since 2014 when this war started with annexation of Crimea and the Donbass. And I remember that I went on my first deployment. I went wearing a Polish helmet, and I'm still wearing a Polish helmet to this day. So yeah, I think we have a lot in common, like historically and basically like friends, like humans.
I don't think this war would have been possible without Poland. Without Poland accommodating all the transportation of all this equipment across the border. No disrespect to Romania, they have mountains, it's much more difficult. But for Poland, yeah, if they weren't willing to participate, if they weren't willing to facilitate the transfer of all this equipment, this wouldn't be happening right now. In addition, those first 2 weeks of the war, they took in something like 7 million refugees temporarily before they could be relocated to other countries potentially.
Yeah,
Since we
yeah.
mentioned refugees, do you feel like most people have come back, or are refugees that left 6 months ago still staying away?
We're talking about mostly women and children, because first of all, Ukrainian men cannot move out of Ukraine much for obvious reasons. We all have to stay here and protect Ukraine. Uh, some of them tried, uh, but mostly is like women and children, and I think they like it's kind of dangerous for them to return to Ukraine yet. Even the Western Ukraine cities like Lviv or Ivano-Frankivsk or whatever, because currently the whole Ukraine is a front line because of Russian long-range missiles. And
Plus, Belarus keeps making noise on the border in the north for no reason.
yeah, yeah, of course, it's not the Belarusian army that is, you know, dangerous. It's Russian army that uses Belarusian territory. So I think that I would not advise Ukrainian women and children to return yet. It's not a proper time. I think they better return after our victory. Yeah, but among like above all, I would like to say big thank you to all the people who care for Ukrainian refugees, who help them. Uh, I hope they don't misbehave much in your country, and I appreciate what you do. We all do here.
Can I ask, with winter approaching, because it's already September now, how do you think this war will change once the weather starts getting cold?
The winter means increased consumption of fuel. On the first place, I'm talking about Russian vehicles. I'm talking about Russian personnel because they have to keep themselves warmed, right? And judging from what's happening at this point on the east, I'm talking about destruction of their ammunition depot, fuel depots, and things like that. Like in general, their logistics. I think they will have problems, but I think that we will have problems as well when there's like spring, summer, when there's plenty of leaves on trees and bushes. It's very easy to make ambushes. But on the other hand, when there's a more like a positional warfare, you would prefer having those leaves because when your position can be observed through trees, it's kind of bad. So I think that Russian troops will suffer because of that as well. Um, and we should face the facts because Ukrainian army has more advanced weapons at this point. I'm talking not about the numbers, but about the quality. Um, and I think that our snipers will have a lot of work as well. So yeah, a lot of people think that Russians will not perform any kind of offensive operations. I don't think it's true because Russian army doesn't care much about the season. Um, Basically, they attacked Ukraine in winter. Uh, but I think that is more, up to Ukrainian artillery. It depends on uh, our, uh, you know, um, our potential of using our artillery precisely and strategically. So I hope it answers your question as well.
Yeah, of course. I do remember when Russia invaded on February 24th, that first week of the war, there were all these crazy videos of Russians just freezing. They didn't have the proper like thermal underwear and gloves and proper hats, and their boots are apparently terrible quality as well. So I just wonder, with them knowing that winter is coming, are they going to prepare at all to protect their soldiers from getting frostbite? Because when I see these pictures and videos of the conflict, even in summertime, it just looks like everyone is camping outside. And I'm trying to imagine what it's going to feel like in January or February.
Yeah, because it also means that they will have to use their additional logistics, additional vehicles, for example, to bring supplies from Russia to Ukraine to their positions and supply their soldiers with like winter clothes and stuff like that. And they have to supply every single soldier with warm clothes, which is kind of, you know, uh, it opens a lot of possibilities for Ukrainian army on the first place.
I also think I'm speculating, but I think that they were often idling their vehicles, leaving their transport and trucks and tanks on for the heat, for the heaters to be on, and it was wasting gasoline, which is why that 40-mile convoy going to Kiev the first month stalled out. I think they were just sitting in their trucks trying to stay warm, and it was burning gasoline. Uh, Not they don't have that concern in the summertime, but it will be a problem for them getting fuel in the winter.
Yeah, sure. I can say that uh, during like first weeks of this invasion, we found a lot of their vehicles that were completely dry. Uh, there was like zero fuel inside. So that's one reason, and another reason is that um, uh, it's like they were kind of scared. There were cases when they would literally arrive to Ukraine and drain their tanks and leave their vehicles like abandoned and stuff like that. And by the way, that 30-kilometer long column that was moving from Belarus to Ukraine, it was supposed to land in Hostomel on the first place. So on 24th of February, that whole brigade was supposed to land in the Hostomel airport and use Hostomel as their main air bridge.
Yeah, that didn't work out too well. I'm curious if you're familiar with the case of the Russian soldier Pavel Filatyev. For those not familiar with him, he was a Russian paratrooper that participated in the war in Ukraine the first 2 months. He invaded from Crimea, was part of the brigade that took the city of Kherson. He was involved in attacks on Mykolaiv. He was then injured and rotated out of Ukraine, and while recovering in the hospital, he decided to write this 140-page memoir where he just absolutely trashes and blasts the Russian military and the Russian government. Since publishing this memoir about a month ago, he's had to flee Russia, and I guess he's been accepted maybe as he's been granted asylum in France or something. I'm sure someone's trying to protect him for speaking out. But I'm curious what your reaction or what a Ukrainian's reaction is of him participating in the war, but then afterwards speaking out.
It requires a lot of courage to do what he did. And I'm really happy that he managed to escape from Russia, of course, because, and it takes a lot of courage because, like in Russia, you literally cannot call everything what happens in Ukraine at this point. You cannot call it a war. Like if you want to go to jail in Russia, all you have to do is like stay in the middle of the red square and say Russia brought war into Ukraine. Boom, you're there. 10 years. Which is crazy, of course. And by the way, it makes me smile every time Russians try to, teach us about democracy. So what he did was very, very brave. I think that this is one of those few Russian soldiers that have my respect, basically. All other Russian soldiers are either dead or they serve in Russian Liberation Battalion here in Ukraine, fighting against Russian invaders.
So I guess to follow up, you would argue that, because he did actively participate in the war for 2 months, more than likely he killed Ukrainian soldiers while fighting. If the war had been over in 7 days, do you think he would have spoken out? Do you think he would have said anything? So because he's shown, I guess, remorse, it's more visibly anger when you see these videos. But do you think that he should be forgiven for his participation those first 2 months?
It's really hard to judge, and of course, if he killed civilians and committed atrocities, he's a criminal, and like it doesn't matter what he says. Basically, he needs to face the law. He needs to be responsible. But on the other hand, what he says is valuable. Valuable not only for us Europeans but also for Russians. I think that a lot of Russians have to read his book. But speaking of Ukrainians, we weren't surprised much because we know the way Russian soldiers fight. Unfortunately, we are closely acquainted with their way of fighting, and we were not surprised by his memories.
In other news, are you familiar with the video that Kadyrov in Chechnya just put out saying he might be stepping down? What is your thoughts or reaction to that?
Mm, Probably he is scared. Uh, Probably rather even not as scared as he's trying to find some kind of benefit for him in the future. Uh, by the way, he already changed his mind, so now he claims that no, he will continue fighting in Ukraine because of he said something about like satanic banquet in Ukraine or whatever. Uh, they keep repeating same BS about Ukrainian black magic. Uh, Anyways, but he already changed his mind, and you cannot really trust what Kadyrov says because he was basically purchased by Putin during the Chechen war, and all he cares about is money. So, like probably in the future, he and I'm sure that Lukashenko as well, after the defeat of Russia, they both will be speaking things like, we were against this war from the beginning. We were trying to save peace and lives of Ukrainians. So, I mean, I think that that's the kind of man he is. So also, I think that probably after that statement, because again, Russians try to control everything we hear outside Russia. Probably after that statement, he made some people angry, like Putin, for example, and they talked to him basically. So they gave him an offer he couldn't refuse.
The joke that I hear is that for powerful and influential people in Russia right now, their greatest fear is Windows. All these oil executives keep mysteriously falling out of windows in their buildings. But yeah, with Kadyrov, I imagine that Putin is very frustrated that he hasn't done more to help Russia win the war. He promised all these elite Chechen warriors, tens of thousands of them, to go into Ukraine, and all he did was film all those goofy TikTok videos blowing up empty buildings.
Yeah, it's true. They are very angry at Kadyrov because of that. On the other hand, those elite Kadyrovite troops, they are highly overestimated because, on the first place, Chechnya is just a bit smaller than Kiev region, than Kiev Oblast. It's a very small country. Um, Also, all the like most professional soldiers, people who have like most experience in Chechnya, currently they are fighting for Ukraine because they had to escape from Chechnya and move to other European countries together with their families or without them. And as soon as this war started, I mean the invasion, they returned and they moved to Ukraine, and they formed this amazing battalion, the Chechen voluntary battalion that helps us Ukrainians. So I think that we absolutely have to help them in the future. After we are victorious, we have to help them to bring their home back as well.
I've seen some of the videos of the Chechens fighting for the Ukrainians. They look pretty interesting when they fight. Aside from Kadyrov, what's the craziest thing that you think you've seen the last 6 months that the Russian military has done?
I think it's Bucha. We've been there probably on the second day or third day after liberation of Irpin and areas around Irpin. So yeah, I think it's Bucha. It's very hard to look at kids being shot. The day we saw that grave, I've been there with CBS News, and we didn't plan to go to Bucha, but we visited that grave near the church. There were plastic bags, there were bodies in the grave, and among those bodies were children. Unfortunately, there were like children bodies wrapped in bed sheets, and they were like this big, you know. So that's probably one of the craziest thing that not only what Russians did, but one of the craziest thing that I have to remember until the end of my life.
I just read the report about an estimate was done how many civilians the Russian military killed in Mariupol, and they're saying it's potentially over 80,000. And I think a number like that, I think the Russian military has done everything they can, especially relating to Mariupol, to hide any evidence, to hide pictures and videos. And with Bucha, Western media was allowed to go in and see it. But in Mariupol, aside from RT News, nobody's getting in, nobody's able to see, nobody's able to investigate. So I think, sadly, more tragic stories will come out, more stories will be heard once Russia is eventually pushed out of all the territories. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, and we saw those pictures from satellites, pictures from Mariupol. I think like a couple of weeks after the Mariupol was captured by Russian troops, the satellite images were published in the Western media showing huge cemeteries, fresh graves that were made like just recently. And they made some estimation regarding the bodies, but I think that it's probably hard to imagine. Of course, Mariupol is not a big city, so the population of Mariupol is something like 400,000 people. The population of my district here in Kiev is almost 400,000 people, so it's not a big city, it's rather like a town. Why I mentioned this is because Russians think that Mariupol is like one of the major cities in Ukraine, like whatever, Kiev or Kharkiv, for example. No, it's not. But still, for 100,000 people is quite a lot, and I think that one day we will be shocked by discovering new graves and new bodies in that region.
I'm curious what the Ukrainian military thinks about your YouTube channel. You have over 300,000 subscribers, and you've had numerous videos get over 1 million views each. Have they ever come to you saying you should talk about this, or don't talk about this, or maybe even has the idea ever been floated to you that you should do a video with President Zelensky, since your videos are capable of getting millions of views?
I would be happy to have Mr. President on my channel as well. Unfortunately, I think it's impossible because he's busy with more important things. I don't blame him at all. Uh, as for my commanders and chiefs, well, um, I cannot say that they were like asking me to say something specifically because it's my rather private channel. So I can use it like a partisan because I can give some information as a an official person, and some information can be given as from a private person. That's the beauty of YouTube, I think. But well, once I've been told that I would look better in my YouTube videos wearing a uniform. And I completely agree on that because we have a kick-ass uniform. So yeah, that's like the only thing I ever heard from my chiefs or commanders. Um, but we have a great like mutual understanding with my commanders. Um, of course, there are things that we don't talk much about, uh, which like you know talking about them makes no sense whatsoever because, for example, we all know that Russians are pros at manipulating information. And for example, when you say that Ukrainian soldier become mad because he received a an armored vest that was too big, you know, it's like I'm not sure if this news is worth of of your time at all, but Russians will make a huge sensation out of this news. They will say that, oh my god, Ukrainian army is running out of men and armored vests, and look at our armored vests, we are all supplied and stuff like that. So uh, come on, like there are very stupid things that we there's no sense in speaking about them whatsoever. But of course there are things that we can change, uh, and they are being changed, and there are more global things, more strategic things that we should definitely talk about, specifically about like problems in Ukrainian army, um, what we need, what we have to have in order to be more efficient, in order to make our victory closer.
When Ukraine wins this war, I'm curious if you've already thought about potentially what you're going to do after it. Do you plan on staying in the military, as long as you can, or when this war is over, do you want to transition your life and do something else? Will YouTube still be involved?
Oh my God. I mean, every military at some point starts thinking like, as soon as my contract is finished, I'm done. After a while, he returns because army, it's army never ends. You don't get born as a soldier, you die as a soldier. So I, of course, I can start planning a lot, and I'm sure that those plans will include, I don't know, traveling around the globe and living for myself, and I don't know, chilling on every beach in Indonesia or whatever. But I'm sure that is gonna be completely different. So yeah, we will see. At this point, our main goal is to uh, win this war, basically, and we will start planning our future after that, I think.
Have you ever been to the United States?
Yeah, I've been to the United States in 2008. I worked for the World Bank Group, and basically I've been there for like a couple of weeks.
Oh,
I've
cool.
been
Well,
to yeah, I've been to the Washington D.C. I visited all of the museums in the downtown. It was really nice.
you're talking about the Smithsonian museums?
That was the first museum that I visited, and it's amazing. I mean, guys, if you are in the US right now, you gotta go there. Smithsonian Museum of Spies, Museum of Holocaust. By the way, it's worth visiting, of course, in order to understand and change a lot in your
Washington, D.C.
perception of the
is
world.
a very beautiful city with all the cherry blossoms, and there's all the memorials on the National Mall and all the Smithsonian museums. There's lots to see and do. It's a, the city center is very nice. There's a very clean and very efficient metro as well, so it's easy to get around. Highly recommend it. But if you ever want to come out to the West Coast and visit Las Vegas, let me know. I'd love to show you around here. This is a very fun city as well.
Okay, okay, sounds great.
So I asked my subscribers what they want to know about you, and people kept asking me about your dog. What's your dog's name, and why is everyone so interested in your puppy?
His name is Fudge, like Hutch, but Fudge. Uh, it's Fudge originated from Foxy, and Foxy is basically his Ukrainian name. It's Liz. Uh, well, I think that people are interested in Fudge because he's so adorable, and because he conquered my social media. Probably at some point I will have to just like rename my Instagram to Fudge the dog and whatever, give him the login and password. Uh, and I'm sure that he will have a lot more subscribers than I do. Um, so yeah, Fudge is my best friend for life. I adopted this dog in a shelter, in a pet shelter in 2017, I think. Because, like, prior to Fudge, I had a dog. I had a Rottweiler, and she lived together with our family for like 15 years. And when she passed away, it was really hard. And after that, I thought that I will probably never have a dog because it's really hard to see them, passing away. But at some point, I was watching the YouTube videos, some kind of related YouTube videos, and there was like a dog that was uh, tortured and beaten by its owner. So the volunteers took that dog from him, and this dog was like it had like psychological issues. It didn't trust people, so it was like a before and after video. They showed this dog like in the beginning she was like scared and stuff, and then they showed it like after a while, and it was like friendly and it was enjoying life. I was like watching this video and I was like, no, 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 no. And then I saw another related video with another dog in like a couple of days, and this dog was so happy because it was saved, and I was like, no, 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 no. And then I saw the third video and I was like, damn it. So I went, I found some website of those shelters, and I picked a shelter, and I picked the most ginger dog I could find, and that basically was Fudge.
Next question: where is your favorite place to get sushi in Kiev, and what are some other locations around the city that you would recommend people visit when this war is over?
As for sushi, I will tell you the precise location exactly the day the war is over, because yeah, I'm afraid, like, in case they receive some kind of missile strike, I will lose a great facility. But as for other places in Kiev, oh my God, there's like hundreds of places. Starting from restaurants where you can find the best Ukrainian cuisine, to parks and museums. You can literally spend like the whole day just wandering around the Museum of History of Ukraine. It's in Kiev, in the very spot where Kiev was born 1,500 years ago. And the Andriivsky Uzviz is one of my favorite streets in Kiev. It's a very steep street, historical street, that goes down almost to the Dnieper River, and there are those old small houses. And there's basically like history everywhere. Wherever you go in Kiev, you can see some kind of specific historical places and spots here and there. I like. I think that after this war is finished, you guys gotta visit Kiev, and I will take a vacation, and I will show you around, because there's a lot of things to see. And yeah, of course, we have a lot of guides, but there's a lot of places that are very important to me as well. For example, Maidan, that's independent, the Square of Independence in Kiev, where all the major events took place, like Orange Revolution, Revolution of Dignity, where I participated as well, like I don't know, electional debates, the biggest concerts, music shows, parades, whatever. So uh, you're gonna love Kiev. That's I can promise you that.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. I've actually never visited Europe. I've traveled extensively around Asia and Australia, but I've never been to Europe. So when I make it to the continent, I will make an appearance in Kiev. Next question people want to know about is where can they find your music or potentially purchase your music? I didn't know this, but you're in a band and you play an instrument sometimes?
Yeah, so I have a band that consists of a one musician, and that's me. Uh, basically, basically, I play different instruments, but I'm not professional in playing those instruments, and that's why I'm kind of like more a composer than a player or a musician or a musician. So people can find my music on SoundCloud as well as YouTube. My band is called very simply, it's called Starsky. And what I do is basically something like metalcore. So for all the metal heads, there's only two or three songs out there yet, because unfortunately with this war I can't find enough time and, unfortunately, possibilities to finish all I have. But I will do my best, I promise.
So, for
And
people interested, that is Starsky on SoundCloud, and he makes metal music. Uh, Final question people wanted a follow up. How is Grandpa doing?
Grandpa is doing fantastic. I'm visiting Grandpa a lot, and I usually bring him meds and stuff. So he's fine. He's totally fine. He finally installed this Telegram messenger. Uh, yeah, so, like, even despite his 72 plus, but yeah, he's a tough man. He's a tough man.
Well, that's all the questions I had for you today, Starsky. I'm extremely grateful that You've chosen to share yourself and share your story with the YouTube community. I'm sure, like myself, hundreds of thousands of other people feel like they have a friend in the Ukrainian military, which makes them even more invested in seeing Ukraine win this conflict. Do you have any final words you'd like to share with people?
Yeah, I would like to thank you for invitation, of course, and I would like to say big thanks for your support and my biggest appreciation to all our viewers, everybody who supports Ukraine, because today it doesn't matter if you're fighting here in Ukraine or you're sending humanitarian aid or you're simply writing supportive commentaries. But if you support Ukraine, you are already a soldier and you're fighting for the right cause.
All right, my friends, that's all for this video. Until the next one, take care, be safe.